Hi everyone, this is Karen Whooley from KarenWhooley.com, and I'm here with the second video for my pattern Queen of Hearts. I'm going to show you how I go from a half circle to a four-sided increase. It's kind of hard to explain. There's actually four areas with three increases that create four equal sides on this shawl, and you'll see what I mean here in just a second. But the first 5 rows are just a basic half circle here. I'm going to bring it a little closer. Here's row 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is row 5 right here. So I'm going to start with row 6. Row 6 is the first increase row that gives you the corners that you need. And to do that, we're going to start with a chain 3 and turn. And if you read the pattern already, you know that the chain 3 at the beginning of every row counts as a stitch. So make sure you do that. And it says to double crochet in the first double crochet. So we're going to do that. Okay. And then it says double crochet in the next double crochet. So we're going to do that. And then it says double crochet in the next, or 3 double crochet, excuse me, in the next chain 2 space. And here's the chain 2 space. I'm going to do 3 doubles in there. 1, 2, and 3. Now also you can follow along with the chart in the pattern as well to help you figure out where everything is. So we did 3 double crochets in the chain space, then we're going to double crochet in the next double crochet. Actually, in the next 2 double crochets, sorry about that. And then we're going to repeat that one more time. So 3 double crochets in the next chain 2 space. 2 and 3. And then we're going to double crochet in each one of these double crochets right here. So 1 and 2. Okay, so we did that twice. There we go. Then it says V-stitch, and I'll show you where the V-stitch is, in the next chain 2 space. And that's the first corner that's made. So we're right here at this corner, and the V-stitch is a double crochet, double crochet, and then a chain 2, and then a double crochet. So the reason we call it a V-stitch is because it looks like a V when, I'm going to pull my loop out here, is because it looks like a V. When you look at that stitch by itself, the base of the 2 stitches are in the same hole. And then they come out like a V because there's a chain 2 in the middle. So we've done that first corner. Then it says double crochet in the next 2 doubles. And then it says to repeat the 3 double crochets in the chain 2 space section that we did before twice. So we're going to do 3 doubles here, and then we double crochet in each of the next 2 doubles. And then we're going to go, here's the chain 2 space, we're going to do 3 doubles here, and then 2 doubles, 1 in each of these doubles. Okay, then we're going to do another corner. So the corner here is the V-stitch, which is a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Then we're going to do 2 double crochets, 1 in each one of these doubles, and then we're going to repeat that again where we do 3 in the space, And then we're going to do 2 doubles here, or 1 double in each double crochet, I should say. It sounds like I'm increasing and I'm not. Then 3 double crochets in this space. And then we're going to double crochet in each of the next 2 doubles. Okay, so now we've done that twice here. Now we're going to do another corner. So here's a V-stitch, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Then we're going to double crochet in the next 2 doubles. And then we're going to do 3 in this chain 2 space. A double in each of the next 2 doubles. And then 3 doubles here. And then this is where it gets a little different. It's the end of the row, so we do a double in just the first one. And then the last one, which is the turning chain from the previous row, is going to be 2 double crochets, because we want to have 2 double crochets in the beginning and the ending stitch of every row. So here we go with that. So I'm going to finish that row and then put down the shawl for just a second here. And it's hard to see right now because we've just got the first row in, but you'll see here there's the 3 V-stitches here that make 4 straight sides. So what ends up happening is this becomes a 4-sided shawl with a point going down the middle and then 2 points coming out on either side. So I'm going to move over to the next row. So row 7, we're going to do row 7, and row 7 says chain 3 and turn, and then it says double crochet in the first double crochet, and double crochet in each double crochet across, working a V-stitch in each corner chain 2 space. So we're going to do a single or a double crochet in each double crochet all the way across. So the first double crochet, because of the turning chain, has 2 stitches in it right here. But now we're going to just do 1 in every double crochet until we get to that chain 2 space. So I'm just going to work across here. A lot of stitches here, so it's going to take a little bit of time to get there. Okay, so there's the first chain 2 space. So we're going to do a V-stitch, which is a double, chain 2, and then a double in that chain 2 space. So what you'll see here, I'm going to pull my loop up, is that right there inside of the space, there's another V-stitch. So we're going to do the same thing in all 3 corners, and I will meet you back at the end of the rows to show you how to end this row. Okay, at the end of the row, we've got V-stitches in all of our chain 2 spaces, which there's just 3, but now you're starting to see where you're getting 4 sides here. We still have 1 more stitch, and at the end of the row, like I mentioned before, you just do 2 double crochets in that last stitch, and you're working in the turning chain, so sometimes it's hard to get that hook in there for the first stitch, and I seem to have made that turning chain a little too tight. So I'm gonna loosen it up a little. There we go. There we go. So there's 1 and 2. So that's row 7. I'm going to put this down here for a second. And so we've got our 4 sides starting to form here. So now row 8 is basically the same thing as row 7, is you're going to double crochet, 2 double crochets at the beginning of the row, double crochet until you get to the chain 2 space, which right here is kind of hidden. They're going to do a V-stitch in the chain 2 space. I'm going to go across, do another V-stitch here, single or double crochet across, V-stitch here, double crochet across, and 2 in the last stitch. So when I finish row 8, I'll come back and we'll pick up from there so that you can see how to do the first part of the checkerboard. Okay, so now you can see we finished row 8 here, and I have 4 sides, as you can see, and 3 corners. So now we're going to start the checkerboard portion of the pattern, and you make the checkerboard by using 3 double crochet clusters. And I'm going to show you how to do that as we do row 9, and I'm going to go across all the way across row 9 because there's some differences as you get to the corners what you need to do. So we're just going to start right off the bat with a chain 3 and turn. There you go. And then you're going to do a double crochet as always in that first double crochet. So now we have increased right there. Now we're going to do a chain 2. We're going to skip 2 stitches, and we're going to do a 3 double crochet cluster in that 3rd stitch from the last stitch we did. So we skip that. We're going to yarn over. You're going to insert into that stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, just like a double crochet, yarn over, pull through 2. So there's a partial double crochet there with 2 loops left on your hook. We're going to do another partial. So we're going to yarn over, insert into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, then yarn over, pull through the first 2, and what that does is makes the second partial, and there's 3 loops on the hook. Do 1 more with yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So now, as I pull this a little closer here, you can see there's 3 partial double crochets right there and 4 loops on the hook. So to finish the cluster, we yarn over and pull through all 4 of those, and there is your cluster. So then you're going to chain 2, you're going to skip 2 stitches, and you're going to do another cluster in the next. So you yarn over, insert into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Here's number 2, and there's number 3. And again, you'll see there's 3 partials there, 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, or pull through 4, sorry. Yarn, and then you're going to do a chain 2, and you're going to do that 3 more times so that there's a total of 5 clusters across to the next corner. 2, 3, and then chain 2, skip 2, and do a cluster here. And there's the 3rd one, 3 partials, 4 loops, pull through, chain 2, skip 2, here's the 3rd one, and then the last cluster. Okay, so now if you look at this side, I'm going to put it down so you can see the whole side here. We have 5 clusters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with chain 2 spaces between them, and then the chain 2 space right here at the beginning. So now we're close to the corner, so we're going to chain 2 and we're going to skip these first two here, and then we're going to work into the space, and we have to make a corner here, and this is actually going to be called a cluster corner. So the cluster corner, it's the same idea as the V-stitch, except you're using clusters instead of the double crochets. So we're going to do a 3 double crochet cluster in the space. So there's your 3 partials. The 4 loops on the hook, pull through all 4, then you're going to chain 2, just like the V-stitch, and then you're going to do another cluster in the same space. So there's 3 partials, 4 loops, chain 2, or pull through all 4. Then you're going to chain 2, just as we did before on this side. We're going to do a chain 2 here, but instead of skipping 2 on this portion of the shawl, we're going to actually skip 3 before we do the cluster, and that's just to place your clusters in the right place. So we're going to do that. We're going to do another cluster, chain 2, and we're going to have 5 clusters along this side as well, or in this section. I guess I really shouldn't call them sides. They really should be sections. There's 4 sections to the shawl. Oops, so I lose my hook. Skip 2, another cluster. And then you're going to skip chain 2, skip 2. And here's another cluster. And we need 1 more. So chain 2, skip 2, and we're going to do another cluster here. Okay, so before I do the corner cluster, I'm going to put this down again. And you'll notice here, even though we skipped 3 right here, it doesn't cinch up things too bad. It's just so that we can get the right number of stitches across. So when we do our chain 2 on our corner cluster, it's the same as this one. So what we're going to do here, we're going to chain 2, and we're going to do a corner cluster here. So there's the first cluster. We're going to chain 2. We're going to do another cluster in that same chain 2 space. One more. There we go. And then we're going to chain 2, and we're going to skip 3 again. So 1, 2, 3, and do this one. We need 5 clusters on this side. And this down, we're going to only skip 2. So the only spot we skip 3 is right after that corner cluster. So on these past 2, on these 2 right here, this corner cluster and this corner cluster, after we made them, we skipped 3 on both of these. When we get to the next corner cluster, we're only going to skip 2. And you'll see why in just a second. So there's 3 clusters, 2 more. Okay, that's the last cluster for this side. And then we're going to chain 2, and we're going to do a corner cluster in that next chain 2 space. So there's the first cluster, 4 loops, pull through all 4, chain 2, and a second cluster in the same space. Yarn over, pull through all 4 of them. Chain 2, this time we're only going to skip 2. 1, 2, and then we're going to do 5 clusters again with chain 2 spaces between them. 1, 2, oops, I only did two double crochets instead of 3 there. That happens, so it's really easy to just go back and rip it out and do it again. Chain 2, here's the next cluster, 1, 2, this time I made sure I did the third. So there's 3 clusters so far, chain 2, skip 2, 1, 2, 3, and one more, 1, 2, skip 2, cluster here, 2, 3. Okay, then we're going to chain 2, and we're back at the end of the row, so we skip 2 and we do 2 full on double crochets in that very last stitch. Now if you look at our clusters here, after I put this back down, we want the beginning section and the ending section to be identical, and we want the 2 middle sections to be identical. That's why we only skip 2 here, because at the end of this row, or at the end of this section, we only skip 2 on this side. These 2, we're gonna just shift them a little bit so that everything works out perfectly when we do row 10. And I'm gonna start row 10 right now. Row 10 is a chain 3 and turn. And you're gonna do a double crochet in that first double crochet. Then you're gonna chain 2, and you're gonna do a 3 double crochet cluster in this next chain 2 space. So if you look at that, we're skipping over this double and we're going right to the space. And we're gonna do a chain, or a 3 double crochet cluster. And then we're gonna chain 2, and then we're gonna go over to the next chain 2 space and do a cluster. And then we're going to do another chain 2. Did I do a chain 2 there? I didn't do a chain 2 there. I did a chain 1, so that's why it didn't look right. So here we're going to do the cluster again. Had to rip that out. Fortunately, I caught it right off. What I usually do to catch that is I just kind of separate everything just to make sure that there's a big enough space there. So chain 2, and do another cluster in that hole. So you're just going to repeat these clusters with a chain 2 in between them until you get to the corner. So there's the chain 2. Here's another one. And then a chain 2. 2, 3. Chain 2. So here's the corner cluster right here where my fingernail's coming through. This is the last chain 2 space before the corner cluster. So we're going to do one more cluster there. And then we're going to chain 2. And then we're going to do a cluster corner in the chain 2 space. Now, if you have trouble remembering where the corners need to be, because the clusters kind of make it tight or make it hard to see sometimes, I would put a stitch marker in each one of these corners so you know where the corners are and where you need to make a corner. And sometimes that's a cue to you to go, okay, I have to make the corner here. So here's the first cluster, chain 2. Here's another cluster. And then you chain 2 again. And then you're going to do a cluster in the next chain 2 space. So the way it works, after I get this cluster here, get the cluster in and the chain 2. So the way it's going to work as you do this is you start with the 2 double crochets at the beginning, and then you chain 2 and you do clusters in each of the chain 2 spaces till you get to the corner. Then you do a corner cluster, then you're going to chain 2, and then you're going to start doing the clusters again with chain 2 spaces in between. When you get to the corner here, you're going to do a corner cluster. Same thing, chain 2, clusters in all of these spots, corner cluster here. When you get to the last side, I'm going to move the tail. The tail always wants to get in the way. Clusters with chain 2 spaces in between. Here's your last cluster. Then when you chain 2 here, you're going to do 2 double crochets in that last one and skip. You always want the ends to look exactly the same on both sides. So that's row 10, and you're going to do row 10, 11, 12, and 13 exactly the way I did it. It's going to increase the number of clusters every time you do it because you're doing corner clusters. That's how we get the increases. When you finish row 13, row 14, we're going to go back to these straight double crochets, and it's exactly the same as what we did down here on this first row of just double crochets. You'll do 3 rows of double crochets, then you'll do another 5 rows of the clusters, then you'll do another 3 rows of the doubles, and then you'll do clusters, and you'll do that for a total of 48 rows. At the end of the 48th row, I will come back with a video to show you how to do the heart section of this. In between, I will show you another video on how to change yarns as you work your shawl. If you remember the first video I did for this shawl pattern, I showed you how to wind everything into one big cake. Let me show you that cake again really quick. Here's that cake. I'm going to show you when you get to the end of this first color, which is smokestack, how to do a Russian join so you don't have to worry about tails. And that'll be the next video you see because we'll run out of smokestack before we get to the filet crochet. Talk to you soon.